Hello, it's Teresa with Art Literacy for Lake Grove Elementary for the months of November and December. We're going to do Frida Kahlo. This is some coloring sheets we'll have at the end in case they run out of something to do, and we'll have that extra time. But what you need to do this project, it's going to be, as it says here, a draw your own self-portrait. So we're going to have a few different tools here, proportions of the face. This is kind of what the art will look like at the end. Anyone can kind of do it. You will need very specifically this kind of paper with this golden portrait frame. They'll write their name at the bottom. And then using special kind of tools this time, we have a pencil, of course, and a Sharpie. But these specific water-soluble wax pastels. So what they'll do is color and then use a little bit of water in a dish and this brush to turn it into paint, and we'll show you how that works. So this is something the volunteers can start doing, is filling these little cups. There's one for each student, but you don't need very much water, just a tiny bit. And it's helpful if each student also ends up with a piece of paper towel. So the way the project will go is, first of all, always write the name on the back. So name and the teacher or the room number. We'll also have little tiny mirror. This is too big, but we'll have a mirror because the idea is a self-portrait. So you'll see in the lesson ahead of time that they're not really supposed to just draw anybody, they're supposed to draw themselves. And what can help with that is looking at themselves in the mirror, and also this proportions of the face is really helpful. So you can see that you just draw an egg shape and then kind of do a hash in the middle, and that middle line's where the eyes go, and then the nose is halfway between the bottom half, and then halfway between that again at the quarter mark is the mouth. And it gives you some tips on how to draw hair and stuff. It doesn't really matter. They don't have to be super accurate. You can kind of see these are kind of detailed. They don't have to be that detailed. They can be, this is a 4-year-old to this one. So you can kind of see how they come together. But what's really nice about these pastels is the color vibrancy. So you get that rather than doing watercolor where it's really, really pastel color. So I'm going to pretend that I'm doing a self-portrait for myself. You can write your name at the bottom. So I'm just going to write here. I'm going to make this one Ramona. And so you start with that circle. You just have to help the kids, especially the younger kids, with drawing that self-portrait. You'll see in the video, you don't have to do right in the center. You can kind of do off to the side. But it's easier if they're struggling to kind of just have them do right in the center. And then you can do this shape right in the middle and just draw the eyes. And then you do in the middle again, and that's where the nose is. And you do in the middle again, and that's where the mouth is. And the reason to do pencil is that you can kind of sketch it out, so you can kind of get to the right idea of what you want. They're going to go over it with a Sharpie, so they don't have to be perfect at this step. You can encourage them to kind of do sketching or whatever makes sense. Whoops. And you can erase if they need to. So you can kind of see some tips here, like to make a mouth, you do this shape and then just kind of like this. And that can kind of work. And then you can draw in the hair. So they're supposed to leave a little bit of space to put stuff off to the side so that they have their interests in the background, kind of like Frida Kahlo did with her interests. So here I'm just going to draw a bob for this little girl. Okay. And, you know, put in some pupils or whatever you want. Eyebrows, don't forget. They don't have to get everything perfect. We'll go kind of fast through it because it's really a simple project. It's just a lot of materials to kind of manage. So I'll give you tips along the way. So the first tip is really just, have them fill the page. Have it be it's a self-portrait. They can be small in the middle if they prefer, but then they need to spend the time filling the background with a lot of stuff. So before we get this marker out, actually, you probably want to fill the background with stuff. So for instance, this person likes her cat. A big fat cat back here. Also a pair of red boots. How about? some rain boots. And then maybe a hat, a witch's hat. That's what this kid likes. Cool. All right, and then when they've got all that kind of drawn in, it doesn't have to be super detailed because we're gonna do a lot with the color. So then you just kind of grab the Sharpie. The Sharpie's important. You can't use a different marker that's water soluble because you're gonna get it wet. So yes, it's the kids in the younger classes might need a little bit of help with the Sharpies, but I think it'll be all right. This paper's pretty thick. Just have them be careful not to draw on a lot of different stuff. And you don't have to get too detailed. So a tip is they don't have to cover, like if they drew the line for the face, they don't have to do that. Just use the marker to outline the things that they do want to do. So I didn't put ears on her. Let's add some ears. So I'm not going to do this line, for instance, but I am going to do the eyes. Maybe some eyelashes. Just a line for the eyebrow is fine, or you can do an outline, like this one has an outline, but you don't have to be that detailed. Another tip is to just do the bottom of the nose. You don't have to do the whole long line. But it really doesn't matter. Once you add the color in, it all looks pretty good. Okay, make sure they have some kind of like neck at the bottom with a shirt or something. And then you can draw in all of the, just go ahead and have them draw in all of the different parts. So here's that cat and this hat. It doesn't have to make sense. You can have it be a scene if they prefer to like have their background of their house or their backyard or something, or a playground, whatever the kids want. There's no right answer. And you can always come back later and add more. So that's probably pretty good. Okay, then this is the fun part. So you can set that aside and this aside. They color this in. They don't have to do super detailed. I'll say we don't have a ton of these. These are a little bit pricey, and so, and they're not gonna use a ton. They're gonna have to share maybe. We should have enough. We're getting a second shipment in, but just so you know, they'll have to share because there's not a ton of them, especially in the skin color tones. Also, some of these are a little bit unpredictable in what they turn into when you color. So we'll have some little samples clipped to the edges, but really they can just experiment. And the nice thing is you can layer on top. So I'm just going to start with this color. They don't have to be super duper perfect with the coloring because it all gets wet and spread around. So you'll see what that looks like in a second. So you can kind of just sketch it in actually, like that. We'll give her some brown hair. You can do a thing here where I'm going to give her, for instance, some like blonde highlights. So you can do that. And you'll see it kind of blends together. So I'm not coloring all that hard, but the crayon just kind of nice. It's a good quality pastel, so it comes off really nice. Fit all of that in. We'll do black hat. Yellow cat. And you can do things where you kind of put around the edge a different color or a shadow, and that can come through. I'm going to do a simple one to start with, and then we'll show you how you can add some extra detail if they have time. And give her a purple shirt. And you can encourage them to take a little bit of time to look at themselves in the mirror, figure out what they look like. if they want to do, instead of stuff they like, they can do a feeling, just how they're feeling. So if a kid is stuck, that's a good thing to kind of suggest. It's like, well, how are you feeling today? Let's see, let's just do like, maybe this pink for the lips. Here's a pink. Okay, the fun part is the water. So there's different size brushes. We'll get lots of different ones. Little ones are better. So there might be some in the bin. We'll try to get rid of them that are big, but we really want these little ones. So something like this is pretty good. Here. And you can see, I'll just start with the face. It just kind of smears together, and that's kind of cool. It's actually easier to see maybe on the hair. Here, I'll do the hair next. So you see that middle color is a surprisingly yellow color. It's good for blonde hair or whatever. It's a little bit unexpected. So just if it turns a color they didn't want, let them know that they can just add color on top. It's ends up being kind of like paint that way. You just have to be careful. This is the gotcha. You have to be careful to not soak the paper. So especially the younger grades, well, all the grades really, make sure that it's just a little bit of water in here and they're not doing a huge soaking of the paper. It is watercolor paper, but it can get really rumply and it won't dry fast enough for them to layer on. So just enough water. You can kind of see what it's doing there. It like turns it into basically paint that's right on the page. So that's kind of cool. Similar to the watercolor ones we did last year with the flowers, but much more vibrant colors, which is nice. A couple things that can go wrong if they go outside the line like that. You can kind of take this and just dab it and it will kind of fix it. It doesn't fix it all the way, so that's okay. Just let them know that's part of the style. The other thing that can go a little weird, oops, that's really it. Oh, the other thing that can go a little weird is the colors can bleed. So you might want to have them like rinse. That's what this is for really. If they want to switch to like, say now I'm going to do the pink. Otherwise you'll end up with the colors mixing a tiny bit because they do end up with some color staying in the brush. Otherwise, just, you know, I encourage them to do, what you don't want to have them do is just take a brush and do the whole thing. That will smear the colors everywhere. So they should tackle each shape one at a time as much as they can. So like I'm going to go in and do this neck next, similar color, and then I will do the eye. And if you want, you can use a smaller brush. You can switch to a little brush and do the eye, for instance, for a little more control. That's really it. You see how dark the black is. So when they switch to black or purple or this dark green, really need to rinse the brush out. Otherwise they'll end up bleeding color all over the other spots. But you see, you don't need all that much water, so it should be pretty good. And then once you have all of this filled in, you can see you can mix colors. So I took the purple and that blue together, made a new color. So you can start to do that. There can be a little bit of like, okay, this is a little dry. We can add in some shadows. So you can do something like, that's the one that turns yellow. You can do something like this and just kind of lightly add in shading. And then when you add the water, you can blend it a little bit. Yeah. And then if you wanted to add in some extra color in the background, if you have time, that's pretty easy to do too. So you can kind of see, they'll probably get the hang of it, that you don't have to fill in every single inch of the thing. You can kind of just apply the color and then spread it around. It works the best with the darker colors I've found. So these lighter colors have a little bit more. Need a little more. And the frame is printed right on there, so that won't come off. If they want to paint over it a little bit, that doesn't matter. It should be fine. But you can see certain colors bleed a little bit. So if you get frustrated, kids, just help them out with a little bit of paper towel or whatever. And then you can always go back in with the marker if you want to add some defined edges. But yeah, that's kind of it. Make sure they write their name, and that's their self-portrait. At the end, you just got to clean these out, dump these out, please, volunteers. Rinse them a little bit. They can just go in one of these bins. Try to make sure all of the, definitely need all the crayons back so that we have enough for every class. Get these back if you can. We'll try to maybe laminate a few, but I'm not sure we'll get around to that. And then if, like I said, if kids are done early, we do have a few coloring projects. So this for the younger grades, K to 2, and then 3 to 5, if they want to color these in. I would suggest though that they color these in with their own markers or crayons, not these, because these are just not the right medium for this kind of paper, and this kind of paper is not waterproof, so they should not color this in and do the same project. If they really want to do another one, they can do another self-portrait if they want to keep using these markers. So I do recommend you just keep having them work on this as much as possible rather than jumping right to this. It's just kind of an extra that we heard from other coordinators they've been doing, so that it's nice to include. But yeah, that's the project. Thank you so much. See you in the classroom.